Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad you decided to join us today, and with us, we have a guest that has gone all around the world. Today with us, our special guest is Emily Blanton, and Emily Blanton is adventurous. Most people who have traveled as much as she has would probably be at least my age, 55 or plus, but not this woman, because this woman is like, let's go experience travel. Oh, wait a minute. Did I say that? She is the CEO of Experience Travel. So, Emily, we are so glad that you decided to join us today. And just know
Thank
that
you.
today's program is all about you.
Yay.
Yay! So, Emily, tell us, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're an educator.
Mhm.
So, tell us when that vibe, when that little sparkle hits you to where I like what I'm doing, I like my career, but there's got to be something more. Can
Yeah.
you give our viewers that first initial like spark in you?
Yeah. So it's a really good question because I feel, as God often does, it came out of nowhere and it really surprised me. I'm a very type A personality. I like to have everything in its boxes and organized. Ideally in my head, my idea for my life would be that I chose this career path and stayed with it for 70 years, and that's all I ever did. That has shown to not be the case.
Okay, okay,
So back in 2020, I just kind of out of nowhere felt like God was telling me to prepare myself to leave.
okay.
And I didn't really know, I'm currently in education, I'm a teacher, and I also run a travel agency full time. So it's a lot, but I didn't really have any understanding what that meant. Leave what, leave when, where, why, nothing, which, is my favorite thing. Not at all.
Okay, okay.
um, and my mom's really good friend, who has owned her own travel agency for 30 years, reached out to me out of the blue and was like, I see what you're doing on social media. I've seen what you've done with past businesses. I very much have an entrepreneurial heart. And I want to teach you to do what I'm doing. I want you to start your own business and do this. And she knows how much I love to travel. And so I just prayed about it, and I decided, we prayed about it, me and my husband, and just decided to put our yes on the table and have no idea what we're doing, and we figured, maybe this was kind of a track, if you will,
Okay.
to this whisper that I felt like God was putting in my ear.
Okay.
Maybe this was an opportunity for something that was going to be bigger. Um, so that it's been about almost 3 years. And I feel like he's just, as he often does, completely blown any sort of vision that I had for this for myself or what I thought it could be out of the water. And so many things have happened in that time frame that I just feel like this has provided the need for this thing or has provided the opportunity for this thing. And so it's interesting because I feel like I've reached a point in my life, like I said, I'm very type A. I like to have all the boxes checked and just tell me what the plan is. Let's make sure that we have, all of these things in order to make sure it works instead of relying on God. That this year, well, just the last couple of years, I've had so many opportunities where I've just continually laid things down. I've just said, okay, I feel like you're putting this on my heart, private school for our kids. We have no idea where the finances are going to come from. And then all of a sudden that need is met. Um, putting on my heart to want to be able to travel more and spend more quality time with my family. And then the finances come into place to take care of that. And so um, I wouldn't be here where I am now without him continually providing any of that for me. So
So
that was a very
let's do
long-winded
a
answer.
no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. But I'm going to do a play on words, okay?
Yeah,
So waters, okay?
yeah.
Tell our viewers, what waters have you got to take your fingers and glide them through? Have you got to kick your toes in? Have you got to sink your toes in the sand? Tell
Yeah.
viewers some of the places you've got to travel to through
Yeah.
experience travel.
So I specialize in Mexico and the Caribbean. That's kind of my forte. That's where I love to travel. I fell in love with Mexico when I went on my first missions trip when I was 16. And so I've been to Mexico twice this year, but yeah, definitely. We traveled to Cabo, we traveled to Puerto Vallarta this year. We've been to the Grand Cayman Islands. We just got back from Disneyland. So Oregon Coast. I mean, I've kind of done a lot. We've done something almost every single month this year, which is really fun, but also a little exhausting. So I'm kind of ready to be home for a little bit, you know. Um, but yeah, it really is fun for me to explore new cultures,
Okay.
and that's really the vision for my business. um, if I can go into just a tiny bit of a backstory.
Please, please.
My parents both died when they were really young. They both died at 53. They both
Mm,
had cancer, different cancers at different times. Um, and one of the things that they really wanted to do, we didn't get to travel much growing up. There was 4 kids, there wasn't a lot of money. We took a couple trips, but it wasn't something that happened a lot. But one of the things that I remember them talking about all the time was when we retire, we want to be able to do this or we want to be able to go there. And they never got that opportunity because they both died
mm,
too young. And so for me, I feel like I've taken that experience and really tried to live my life by this parameter that we are not. I mean, I know that we know we're not guaranteed time, that any day our time could be up, but really not waiting until I retire to be able to do these things, waiting until my kids graduate to be able to take that trip. I want to just seize the moment and experience what we have right now and help other families be able to create those experiences for those families. Sorry, yeah, experiences for their family.
yeah.
Um, and so a lot of my drive and my passion kind of comes from my own personal experience, not seeing my parents be able to get to experience that.
That's right. You know what? And oh, that's so good and so true. So
Yeah,
good and so true. You know, my dad, and this just fits right. And I'm going to grab this picture right here with
yeah,
like like stabbing it up on the wall. Okay, so I am forever. Although I'm personally in women's ministry, I'm really in men's ministry, right?
yeah,
Because the heart's cry of my inner, I'm going to call it spiritual man, is, man of God, arise, right? That's what my spirit man sounds like, okay?
yeah.
And here's a prime example of parents, okay? So these are my parents right here,
Hmm.
and this is a man from Chicago, Illinois, who married my mom with 5 kids.
Yeah,
Okay, come on, right? And so I'm forever going places, encouraging others. You have no idea the amazing thing that's in store for you. But if you limit or put things in a box or only think in the cube, right, you're going to miss out on a lot, right? So share with viewers um, what it was like to work full time, be a mom of 2 children, be a wife,
hmm,
and not only work full time but be an educator. So you're worked
yeah,
in when you left work, right?
yeah.
Share with viewers what it was like when your brain began to be stretched in learning this new field.
Yeah. Um, to me, I've always really enjoyed learning. I think that's why I became an educator, from
Okay.
4th grade on. I was kind of like, this is what I want to do. And I always love digging into new things. And um, I have a little bit of a workaholic personality. So it's pretty common for me to have my hands in multiple pots and just kind of be. I really like the challenge of trying to, and I think that's also one thing I really enjoy about travel is I really like the challenge of being able to take a puzzle that feels impossible or overwhelming, my life a lot of times, and trying to figure out, okay, how can I organize it and put it um, together so that it makes sense and it's working, or so that I get to really enjoy this passion of mine and pursue it in a way that's healthy and, doesn't take all these things away from my family. But there have been definitely times where I've been like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to manage my time. Um, I talk a lot about systems with my followers. People are always like, oh my gosh, how do you, work full time as an educator and do travel agencies? And I'm like, systems. I have a system for everything. um, but, ideally, and I think this is where this I guess, thing that God has put in my heart over time has developed to really what I would like to pursue full time. My
Mm.
priorities have changed a lot. So that is, from my very logical brain standpoint, like, oh my gosh, that's a little scary because this isn't the path that you chose for your life that's supposed to be linear. Um, but it's also really exciting because I almost feel like, and it's interesting because another friend said this to me a couple weeks ago. She's like, I keep seeing the word release for you. And it's interesting because for years, probably my whole life, the word release in general is a very, very difficult thing for me. I don't release things easily. I don't give myself a lot of grace to feel released from things. And she said, I feel like I keep seeing this word release for you. And I almost feel like, in a way, God is leading me towards this path of being released to do what I really want to do, what really makes me happy, glorifying Him and all of that. What that looks like, though, I don't know. you know, it's constant, it's ever moving. So
It's funny because uh, the word, actually, don't want to use that word. Okay. This is good because let's think of rest for a second. Let's think of mental rest, right?
yeah,
So even down to compartmentalization, and there's value to that, right? There really is. And okay, here's where I'm at right now, and these are the thoughts over here. They just need to stay over there while I work through this, right?
right.
Because
Yeah,
truth be told, all human beings are given the same 24 hours in a day.
right.
We all have the same, right? And how much, I've heard it said that people are the busiest or those that are the most productive because
Yeah,
of what you said. I have systems. Okay, here's for this, here's for this, here's for this, here's for this. um,
right.
so how would you explain to someone how to create drive? Maybe they've never
Oh,
really
yeah.
had drive, or maybe voices around him spoke your lazy when they really weren't. Okay,
Right.
so how would you
Yeah.
help someone take that first step to cultivate, rise up, drive within oneself?
That's a really good question. I think I've always been really driven. My mom used to tell me all the time when I was little that Emily means industrious one, which is like hard worker. So I feel like it was kind of, no pun intended, driven into me that
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
you like to work. That's just, you have an industrious spirit. Um, but I would say the first step is finding something that you're passionate about, because it's really hard to be driven about anything that your heart is not set on fire about.
Okay.
And I think you can be really passionate about something, but then also run into the issues of, I'm not qualified enough. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have the self confidence to do it. And I would challenge that by saying, I know it's such an overused phrase, but faking it till you make it. I really think that there is a lot of power in like pushing yourself to do something when you don't feel qualified, when you have no idea what you're doing. I run into self-confidence blocks all the time, or time periods where I feel like Satan's just kind of throwing all the darts at me, where I'm like, am I okay to do this? Like, people are trusting me to do this for them, you know? Um, but really just pushing yourself through those mental roadblocks. And then you get a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of that steam behind you.
Absolutely.
I almost think of it as like, in a way, I talk to parents all the time about like teaching your kids to read. And when you're first teaching your kids to read, it's not so much about the skill that they're learning, but the confidence behind the skill that they're learning. And if they don't have the confidence and the, oh my gosh, I can do this, or I finally read my first word, they're not going to be invested in learning how to read. And so I feel like any skill that we learn as humans follows that same trajectory of, you know, we have to be able to believe in our ability to do it. And sometimes that just means doing it and getting the success. And then the belief comes, and we just kind of keep repeating that pattern over and over again.
That's good. And elaborate a bit more on that and how truly, truth be told, oneself must become one's strongest cheerleader.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, that's really all we have. You know, people are going to come and go in out of our life. And I'm very much a people pleaser. That's something I've struggled with my whole life. I still struggle with it of what someone's thought and opinion of me is reality. um, I wouldn't say though that our cheerleading necessarily comes from ourselves. I mean, as believers, I think that that has to be rooted in Christ. And so constantly having to go back and say, okay, who do you say I am?
Uh huh.
What is your vision for my life? What do you have for me? Because if we can feel strongly in that, and I know that there's different times where that kind of waxes and wanes, or we're feeling really attacked by the enemy and we're just not feeling it. But if we can really root ourselves in the fact that this is who Christ has created us to be, and feeling really strongly about his plan for our life and what we feel his plan is for our life, he fills in those gaps. So that's one of those things, though, that I have to practice a lot, a lot.
Well, yeah, because, okay, so were your parents both sick for a season or was it out of nowhere?
Yeah, so they were both, I want to say they were both sick for about 2 years. So, and they passed away within 4.5 years of each other. And it was very strange. Like,
Mm.
out of the blue, my dad got brain cancer. And then about 3 years later, you know, he had passed away by that point. My mom got ovarian cancer. And so it was very like, are you kidding me? Is this actually happening a second
Mm.
time? But yeah, they
Mm.
were sick for about 2 years as they were battling those diseases and then eventually passed away from them.
Mm. And what year was that?
So I was 27 and 30, wait, 27 and 32,
Mm.
2011 and 2015.
Mm. That's so, yeah. My mom went in 2009. My
Yeah.
dad, who raised me, went in 2000, and then my biological father went in 2008. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It really is hard. I do want to go back to this because I am a woman who's Jesus, Jesus, Jesus all the time, right?
Yeah.
But it does say, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, right? And so,
Yeah.
so we even David in the Bible, he had to encourage himself before he went to the Lord, right? Because
Right.
I've often thought that potentially, okay, I'm not a pastor of a church, so I can't speak on behalf of a pastor's brain, okay,
Right.
but I've often thought that the one and done, laying hands on somebody and then expecting them to, now their brain is going to be forever transformed the rest of their life because of that one laying on of the hands, right?
Yeah.
It's almost a disservice because in my brain there's no fast track, right? So did you
Right.
grow up around where your parents positive all the time, or did you have to come to a place where you were going to begin to speak positively into your own mind, whether it be
Yeah.
through the scriptures or association or whatnot?
Mhm.
So can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, actually very much the opposite.
Okay.
I grew up in a pretty chaotic house. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. And it's funny because, like, in high school and college, my friends nicknamed me Negative Nancy. Um, I'm very much a pessimist by nature. I don't
Okay.
believe things very easily. I wouldn't say, like, pessimist, I'm very much a realist. Like,
Okay.
let's look at everything on the table, this could happen, this could happen. Um, so I don't feel like it was probably until maybe the last 5 years or so that I really started having to work on, my mental space that way, because it has always been very easy for me to go into, "Okay, if this is gonna happen, this is the worst thing that could happen from it," or, this is probably like, just always trying to prepare myself
Mhm.
for a
Mhm.
possibility, but then you get
Mhm.
stuck in that headspace.
Mhm.
Um, and so I wouldn't say that I'm super positive about everything now, but I have noticed that, and I think really there was a lot that shifted in me when COVID happened. I
Okay.
felt like the rug was really just ripped out from under me, and I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on with my life. I almost feel like in some way, and I feel like a lot of people had this too as well, kind of this existential, I can't say that word,
Okay. Okay.
crisis of who am I? What am I doing? Am I really living for the Lord the way that I thought I was? Um, and so around that time, I feel like that's when I really started to focus a little bit more on, okay, trusting God more, believing in his promises for me, having a more positive attitude instead of this very pessimistic point of view, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some you've mentioned Jesus, so I know you're a Christ follower, okay?
Yes.
And so aside from the Bible, what are some outside sources that that helped you to change your mental uh, is it disposition? Like
Disposition. Yeah.
disposition. What are
Yes.
some things? What are some outside sources?
I have a really good group of friends, some girlfriends that we've been friends with our whole entire lives, grew up in church together. That really helps me.
Okay.
Uh, they're just a great sounding board for when I start to freak out about something.
Okay.
Um, I have been involved in some Bible studies and small groups over the years. Right now, I'm a little too busy to do a Bible study, but my church, trying to think.
Do you have a favorite author? Do you like to listen to a certain podcast? Somebody who inspires
Sometimes,
you?
yeah, sometimes it kind of depends. I went through a phase of like really being into self-help books and
Okay.
that kind of stuff. And now I feel like I'm in this season in my life where my brain can't comprehend reading. Just like I don't know, it's too much. But I do really like the Her Voice movement
Okay.
coming out of Portland right
Okay.
now, with Jenny Allen and sorry, Jenny Donnelly. Um, Jenny Allen's really good too. She's got some great studies. Priscilla, is it Shire?
Schreier. Yeah,
Shire,
Shire.
thank you.
Schreier. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a couple of hers too that have been really,
Okay.
really good.
So, can you share a little bit about that for people who do not know? Hold on, I'm going to get an interview from Priscilla, so I got to write her down right now. Um,
Yeah.
can you share with people who don't know, because I've heard it mentioned on Her Voice, what is that? And Jenny Donnelly, who is that?
Yes. So Jenny Donnelly is based out of Portland. She has created this movement called Her Voice Movement. And really, it kind of stemmed from this dream that she had about a million women strong meeting at the Capitol in DC and praying over the nation. So she started out really small. I mean, it actually didn't end up being small, but kind of
Okay.
with this vision of let's get 100 women together and do this conference where we really talk about how can we be praying for our nation, how can we be getting involved in things like foster care, adoption, supporting people locally, that kind of thing. And so I went to it last year, and I think there was around maybe like 3 or 400 people there last
Okay.
year.
Okay.
I believe this year there was several thousand. They had to have it at the Portland
Mm.
Convention Center. So anyway, she's kind of created some concepts and um, things for people to do to be more intentional about how do we as women, as Esther risings, as mama bears, really be intentional about how we're praying for our nation, how we're praying for our children. Because I think if anything has shown us, after COVID, I feel like was a catalyst to kind of really open our eyes up to a lot of things that were happening to the family unit and how that specifically is being attacked. So that's something that I've been following along with and
Okay.
getting involved with somewhat too.
So, how would somebody find out about that? Is it like online? Is it on Facebook? What is it?
Yeah, you could go to Her Voice Movement on Facebook or Instagram. They have a whole platform there. They do that seminar or conference in July of every year.
Okay.
So you can find that information via their social media platforms too.
Okay. Wow, that is so
Yeah.
cool. It makes
Yeah.
me think of,
Mhm.
I heard it said once. Oh, hold on. Pause. One time the Lord spoke to me. So my oldest child is 36 and my youngest is 27. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember when the oldest was 19 that he was making adult decisions. Well, one of the adult decisions, I couldn't necessarily say, yay, I'm so happy, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't bad or immoral or anything like that, right? But I remember on this one particular day, I said, Lord, I'm going to have to go in that closet and you and I are going to have to talk until I
Yeah.
can come out of that closet and genuinely be happy for that particular child. But it was at that time that the Lord spoke a phrase into my mind, and it was,
Mm.
moms can raise sons, but they can't make men.
Mm.
And it was like
Yeah.
on my end, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
also, can you share how you've been able to use your voice to
Mhm.
inspire or call out the characteristics inside of your children? Can you give us a couple examples? I know you have a son and a daughter.
Yeah. So, like, how I'm using my voice with my kids or with other people?
With your kids and calling
With my kids.
calling out the good in them.
Yeah. So something that I have been really intentional about as a parent, not to say that it hasn't been a lot of work because it has, but um, just going back to my own childhood and kind of thinking about, we as parents do that. Like, I didn't
Yes.
really like this about my childhood. This is what I want to do better. Um, Being really careful about the kind of language that I use around my kids. Um, I'm very intuitive and very empathetic, and that can be a really good thing, but it can also be a really hard thing when you're raising kids. Um, so I want to be really intentional about how they're feeling when I talk to them. But we really talk a lot about, um, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. I knew that was going to happen too. Um, being
Cause
not
and effect. What we do makes a difference, maybe.
Yes, like how we speak to ourselves matters, right? How we
Okay.
let other people speak to us matters. And, um, I think that teaching my kids how important where those thoughts come from and why they come, understanding that, okay, if I'm feeling this way about myself or I have this really discouraging thought, that it isn't always just because we're feeling down about ourselves, right? That a lot of times this is how the enemy tries to attack us by, trying to encourage us or tell us that we are not created the way that we are, and how do we combat that? And I think that's as equally as important as the words themselves, is knowing where they come from, and why they're there. So we talk a lot about that, and I try to be like as open and honest with my kids as possible and share my own experiences. So I know that that's been something that's been really helpful.
good. What would you say um, in raising children? Um, can you talk to parents about the difference you've seen? And I'm asking you this question because I didn't have this figured out when I was raising mine. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm convinced, and I can look back and see it, is that the bar of success that I placed on the weight of a mother was
Hmm.
way too extreme, and I was sleep deprived for years. Okay,
Yes.
so can
Yeah.
you talk about how actually resting helps your creative edge?
Yes. I'm not great at that, to be honest. It's something that I've had to work at really, really hard, especially the last couple years. But I feel like I've also put myself in a place where I'm having to force myself to rest. Like if I'm going to do these two things that I love for however long I'm called to do them, I can't do it on an empty take, you know.
Uh huh.
And I wish that I would have realized that sooner. You know, my kids are 13 and 10. I wish that as a younger person, I would have given myself more grace to sit down and relax. I think one part of my personality and then also how I was raised, relaxing was not an option.
Uh
Relaxing
huh.
was lazy. It was just had a very negative connotation. My mom was go, go, go all the time, always doing something. So I very much saw that growing up. And then I think it just that paired with my personality also did what I did, um, was what I did, I'm sorry. And then I started to see some health repercussions of
Mm.
being exhausted and, kind of having my adrenals shot and that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, well, I can't keep going at this pace this much longer, so what can I do to
Mm-hmm.
force myself to rest? Because it has to be forced for me until it's not,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just
Mm-hmm.
something that's been so ingrained in me growing up
Mm-hmm.
and then into adulthood. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of lost
You
track of
did
it.
no, 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 you didn't lose track at all, and you were on focus and on par the whole time, because I think this is really important, because as we think about it, right? I remember my husband saying, when it was time to take the oldest daughter home from the hospital, it was like, what? They're just going to let us take her home? And they're
Right.
not going to, back then they didn't have any video courses or anything like that. Now they do. They have,
Yeah.
you watch videos, they go over, if you're in a room and your baby's screaming and you can't take it anymore, the best thing to do is leave the baby in the screaming room and you exit the room, right? Leave the baby,
Right.
go make yourself calm, and then you can come back, to get the child, right? But the child's not going to die because the child's screaming, right? I don't
Yeah.
think there was a lot of emphasis, I'm going to say in the 60s and 70s or early 80s, I'm going to say, on really teaching people about inner dialogue, okay?
Hmm.
Because inner
Yeah.
dialogue does make a difference. It makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. And so to kind of sort of tell on yourself with, but only what you're comfortable doing, okay?
Yeah.
I would like you to share with viewers what I'm going to classify as a lie
Yeah.
and how you chose to combat that lie. And now you can look at it and laugh, but you used to not be able to do that because you didn't realize it was a lie.
Yeah. Well, I think I have several that I'm still struggling with, so maybe I can't speak on those ones. But
Okay.
I think the biggest one for me would be resting.
Okay.
I just it's not something, and I don't know. I don't feel like I was told this as a kid. I don't feel like I was told, if you stop or you relax or you sit down, it's lazy. I think maybe it was just what's the word? Shown.
Okay.
And I really don't like the word lazy either. That
Uh huh.
word
Uh huh.
bothers me a lot. So I think that this was just always in the back of my head. If you take a nap when your baby sleeps, then you're lazy. If you sit down and watch a movie, then you're lazy. Like you have to have a really good excuse to be able to do that. Um, which is really ridiculous. Looking back, my 13-year-old didn't sleep through the night till he was 6. Lord help me. I have no idea how I even survived. And I mean, like, he was up multiple times a night until he was in kindergarten. That boy is wired. But um, I I could have benefited from that so much. So how much did I stress out my immune system and my nervous system, not giving myself permission to take a break? And I still have to speak to myself in my mind when I'm like, I just want to relax. I want to sit down and I want to watch a show, or I want to not get off the couch all day after working all week. And I have to, like, actually say, Emily, that's okay. Like, this is what your body needs right now. And I think equally that our society is so, and I've talked about this too, like with my followers and stuff, so
Okay.
hustle focused, especially for women. It's like it's not
Mm-hmm.
always verbally expressed, but we are so expected to be on all the time, doing the things, volunteering for this, making sure that you're cooking these amazing dinners and looking perfect and working out. And I mean, even just saying those things is exhausting. So no wonder we, especially as a culture of women, have such a hard time letting our hair down and taking a deep breath or doing something for ourselves. Because in the back of our
Mm-hmm.
mind on social media, what is being portrayed to us is that if you are not going, then
Mm-hmm.
your value is somehow diminished.
Mm.
Um,
That
and
is
those are really
really
strong
good.
voices to, yeah, really strong voices to combat because it's everywhere.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny that you say that? And I'm sure I've quoted this before, and that is I remember it was probably, oh, okay, I know what year it was. It was 2008. In 2008, we had the honor of my grandmother coming to live with us, okay? And
Yeah,
if you were to look at my journals, 2008 and before, there was this repetitious theme in my journals. Lord, rip everything out of me that is displeasing to you, right? Just
yeah,
gut me of everything, right? And my wife's grandmother said to me, Shawn, why do you say that?
yeah,
Instead, why don't you say, Heavenly Father, show me what you've placed inside of me and who you've created me to be and help me
yeah.
to walk it out? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's genius. Right? That's genius.
Yeah,
What do you mean I'm somebody? I'm actually, or if we think of, like you said, letting your hair down.
yeah,
Um, I am one who I like to bless. I like people, love people. Okay, I can't go
yeah,
into public without talking to people. Just love people, right? And
right.
so, because I love people, I've been contacted on everybody and their sister that's an MLM to try to sell
Hmm.
products, right? I can't
Yeah,
sell. I can't sell products. I can promote people, but I can't sell
yeah,
products because I just want to celebrate the people. Whatever they're doing, I just want to celebrate the people, right?
right. Yeah,
Um, but it's so funny if we think about um, just the different tapes we play inside of our minds. And
right.
once we realize that we don't have to think and rethink about negative, right? We can actually, what was that? Oh gosh, it was a hilarious movie where, oh gosh, I have kids, right? So I've watched different movies over the years. It,
Yeah,
it's called Superstar, okay? And she was a
yeah,
rewind. She was a rewind girl, right?
yes, yeah,
And so how you just, we do that though. We go back and we go back until one day we realize, wait a minute, this is a lie.
yeah,
I don't have to partner with this lie anymore. So
right.
share with viewers some of the choice of self inner talk and what
Hmm.
you chose to speak over yourself that was going to replace a lie.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a good question. Um, you know, with the help, I think, too, of my counselor, who's been very beneficial at, "You're too hard on yourself, you're too hard on yourself." Honestly, I've had to say those things out loud. It's almost like I have to convince myself by speaking the words out loud that,
Okay.
like, audibly giving myself permission, which sounds really funny, but I think until I get to a place where it becomes more natural, that there, is an automatic grace that's extended to myself to do these things where I don't feel like I have to um, have a reason to relax or a reason to watch a movie, if that makes sense. Um, that I have to be very audible and
Okay.
combat that voice because otherwise it just speaks too loudly in my head.
Because it's been a pattern, right? So if we think of
Yes.
and FYI, I'm not paid for any of this, but I've got some fans in my own mind who
Yeah.
helped me overcome certain things. But Dr. Caroline Leaf, one of the things that she said is that through repetitious thought, right? And she was the one
Mhm.
who helped to discover and shed light that our brains are actually neuroplastic, right? They can change.
Right.
But she
Yes.
said through neural pathways, right? Those are the pathways that we don't have to tell ourselves what side of the bed to get out on, right? We don't have to
Well,
tell ourselves what leg normally goes in the pants. We don't have to tell ourselves how to restart the dishwasher, the washing machine. We don't have to retell ourselves certain, and how to drive to a certain destination that we're used to going there, right? Because they're
right.
neurological pathways that are already there. Well,
Yeah.
the same goes for our mental thought patterns, that when we're
Right.
used to going somewhere, so if you picture like a thicket of the forest, and because you've always gone down that pathway, it's nice and open. But then if you stop at the entrance to the thicket of the forest and you're like,
Mhm.
maybe I don't want to go that way, maybe I want to go this way over here, it's going to
Right.
require work.
Yeah.
So how would you share with someone, a, the benefits of doing that, and maybe perhaps give an example of, you just pursuing, and then you're just like, whoosh, I'm just spent. I just need a break for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so for me, I think to put anything in place, whether it's changing my neural pathways in, putting in a new habit or, making sure specific work gets done, I have to be very intentional about putting it in my schedule because it won't happen. And it's funny because my husband, he's very much like a go, go, go person too. And on Sunday, he's always like really restless and I need to get this done. I need to do all these projects. And I'm like, the Bible actually commands us that Sunday is a day of rest. And I'm taking that day and I don't like to plan anything. I just like to, besides going to church, just do regular stuff that doesn't require much of me. Um, so again, it's that giving myself permission to schedule it and put it in, which sounds funny, scheduled rest. But I think until I get to that place where the grace is automatic and I don't feel like I have to give my permission, I have to almost force myself to do it.
This is pretty interesting, Emily, because look who I just interviewed.
Oh, that's
It's called
awesome.
Rethinking
Rest.
Rest.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Rethinking Rest.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, and I interviewed him. So if you go down and you look on our YouTube channel, Rethinking Rest, it's by Gregory D. Hall, and he actually
Okay.
has an audio coming out like around the
Okay.
corner. Okay,
Awesome.
Rethinking Rest. For those, and he has a podcast. I think he has. Oh gosh, don't quote me on that. Anyways, there's an audio book coming out, Rethinking Rest, and it was so wild because when we were on our interview,
Hmm.
or during the interview, he was breaking something down, and then he got to this one part, and he goes, so it got me pondering, why is it that on the account of the seventh day,
Hmm.
it doesn't say there was morning and there was evening? Instead, it just said God rested. And all of a sudden, in the middle of our interview, it was like, and
Yeah.
this thought came to me. That is because on the seventh day, when everything was completed, the kingship of the Creator rested on
Right.
mankind,
Mm. Yeah.
rested on us, right? So when he
Yeah.
said, it is good, he was
Yeah.
saying, that Emily over there,
Yeah.
it is good.
Yeah.
How I created her, oh, she's good. And that's why you can go into an environment and say, I'm his favorite, but
Yeah.
you can say the same thing too.
Right. Yeah.
And so share with viewers how either it was instinctively in you, or like you're talking about the process of scheduling rest into you, right? Into your
Hmm.
schedule. Tell the viewers how you got to a place where you realized it was okay to celebrate your success.
Yes. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. I think especially with my losing my parents so young, you go to your
Mm.
parents to celebrate all of these big accomplishments, right? They're kind of your personal, not everybody, but hopefully, you have a personal cheerleading section and they get super excited and are so proud of you over the tiniest things. Um, so in a lot of ways, because I don't have that anymore, I was kind of forced to be my own personal cheerleader. And I think that I've really had to combat, and I still struggle with that some too, is um, this idea that it looks bad or it's conceited if you're proud of yourself or
Mm.
you celebrate yourself. But in a way, I don't have like my personal cheerleading team as far as like my family is concerned. So
Okay.
I have to do that. Um, and so I've really forced myself to just put it out there. Something that I really like, and I don't think it's for everybody, is, especially when I'm looking at my travel agency, like this month, I just hit my goal for the whole entire year, which was really, really exciting, right? 2 months early. It was a huge goal that we
Yeah.
had. Is sharing that with the people who made it possible. And so I look at it as this is a way that I get to thank God for what He's done and what He's put in my life and this vision on my heart, because without Him, that would be possible. But also to be able to thank the people who make this possible every day by reaching out to me or letting me book a trip for them or referring family or friends or just even getting excited about my business. And so I think with that lens of that it's not just about me, that me celebrating my accomplishment or something that I'm proud of also gets to highlight all the people that are involved. That makes it a little bit easier for me to be like, okay, yeah, I can do it that way because it's not just like, look at how amazing I am,
That's
because
right.
it's not about me. Like if God's hand wasn't in this wouldn't be here.
Uh huh.
So look at how amazing He is, and then that's a lot easier to, I guess, for my brain to process that way, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You know, our motto here at Sagionic 1027 is we're
Yeah.
interviewing carriers of wisdom, because that's what Sagion mean, carriers of wisdom, right?
Right.
But also, those who refresh others will they themselves be refreshed. But I'm
Hmm.
reminded of a scriptural text, and that is in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 19 through 21.
Hmm.
And it says, singing to yourself in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart. Now I'm going to paraphrase, in the midst of giving thanks to God and the Father through him, right? And
Yeah.
so there again, it has to do with capturing the attention of your mind, right?
Right.
Being purposeful, right?
Yes.
Um, I know someone who has a tattoo that says, "Fear is a mind killer."
Mm. Yeah.
So can you tell viewers an example of how you had to? I see like a cheese cutter, or like you're doing pottery and you've got that wire thing that you slice,
Yeah.
pull the pottery off, So
Yeah.
can you tell us how you had to overcome, because there is an acronym for fear that I've heard, and that's false
Yeah.
evidence appearing real. How you
Yeah.
basically had to slice off, I'm going to call it a head, slice off
Right.
a head of fear, and how, just give us one example. It doesn't mean you've completely overcome it, right? But give us
Hmm.
one example, and then the outcome was so profound that that was like the high, or like the shiny sparkle balloons or the bouquet of flowers that helped you to celebrate, that
Yeah.
you were just like, yes, it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. I think probably the biggest one that stands out to me is getting my master's degree. I I don't know if it was just low self-confidence or what, but growing up, I didn't think that I was good at school. I'm pretty sure now as an adult, especially as an educator, I have some sort of dyslexia that just was never diagnosed. But I was told all the time as a kid, like, oh, your spelling's horrible. You're not a good
Oh.
writer. You can't do this. Even in college, as I was writing my, 60-page thesis, um, my college professor was like, "I don't know if I can pass this because of the spelling errors." Um, but I think, like, powering through that and really making it happen, which was not easy. It was a very frustrating process, um, really proved to myself that I can do those kind of things. I can do the ultimate fear was that I'm not good enough to be able to accomplish these things. Blank, blank,
Mm.
blank throughout my life has told me that um, I can't do that. And what's really funny is that I get people tell me all the time, I love writing. I might not have the best grammar or spelling mistakes. Everybody makes fun of my spelling mistakes, but just don't ask me to proofread anything because I'm not good at it. But I get told all the time, like, how good, like, I love your writing. Your writing is so good. Your writing is so like thought provoking. And I just find that really interesting because that was something that I was just told so much growing up that,
Mm.
this is not going to be your jam. Don't pursue anything that has to do with that. And then again, writing my thesis and having a college professor be like, I don't know. So, doing that and then graduating, I was like, okay, I did it. Like, I did this really hard thing that was very challenging. I came up against a lot of obstacles and we powered through it and made it happen. So,
That's a great example.
yeah.
It's funny how our words carry such authority,
Yeah.
which really, gosh, it's almost like your rear view mirror should have something hanging, dangling that said your words carry authority, right? Watch
Yeah.
your words; they carry authority,
Yeah.
because I just heard in the last couple of weeks of my life there was a man who loved the guitar, and he wanted his son to like a guitar. So in the ceiling of the bedroom, he put up a guitar. On the walls
Mhm.
of the room, he put up a guitar, right? Just
Yeah.
he had guitars all over the place. And so on a subconscious, to be manifest in the conscious realm, to be manifested into the physical realm. Oh, let's see, his son loves playing the guitar and is great at it, right?
Right.
And so with our words, I think it's important because they do carry weight. And so we can choose as people. I love that you can go into a room and you could find something good about everybody in the room, right?
Yeah.
And you could celebrate that, so even like with with your business, word of mouth or leads, they didn't come from your voice partnering with something negative. They came from your voice projecting how your mind saw something positive.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
can you give us an example of, by choosing to adopt that format, how you came into a
Mhm.
contact with a particular client without saying a name?
Yeah. Um, can you repeat the question one more time?
So, share with us how through, okay, we're going to call it PMA because PMA is great, positive mental attitude, right? through
Yeah.
adopting a positive mental attitude, right? Through seeing the good in someone else or another
Hmm.
situation. How were you brought into contact with one of your clients that you booked a trip that where you were like, oh my gosh, if I would have chose to look at a situation or a person's life through the lenses of something negative, I would have never got that client.
Yeah. Um, so I think one of the biggest things for me is trusting myself in the
Okay.
process, because as a travel agent, I am exposed to new experiences all the time, right?
Okay.
I have like the things that I specialize in and that I'm very familiar with, but at any point in time comes a new possibility, a
Okay.
new destination that maybe I've never booked or never been to,
Okay.
or a new unique situation that, okay, we need to figure out how this works. Um, so for me, combating that voice of I can't do this, right? Or I'm
Okay.
not qualified enough, or I'm not good enough into, I almost have to twist it
Okay.
and looking at it as a challenge, right?
Okay.
This is something that I get to challenge myself on. Um, and the more that I do that, not to say that it's not scary each time, right? Am I going to mess up, or am I going to do something that, you know, isn't the way that I want it to, but challenging myself that this is a new challenge and I get to learn and grow from this has really been a game changer for me. So each time somebody comes to me with, hey, I want to plan a trip to Japan, and I'm like, okay, I've never planned a trip to Japan before. I don't know anything about it. I just have to remind me this was one that just recently happened. And I was very upfront with my client. And I said, just to be honest, like I've never planned a trip to Japan before. And she's like, well, I'm totally willing to like work with you throughout the process. It doesn't bother me that you don't have experience in this area. So it was really nice to get that feedback from her that, in order to get experience, you have to have experience. It's this double-edged sword that
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
was willing to like take a chance on me learning through this process with her. So I have to remind myself of that each time I get into this situation where it feels like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or I haven't done this before. Just changing the language there.
That's that's it's almost like, okay, so the phrase that comes to me is becoming a student of yourself and
Hmm.
choosing to give yourself a good grade, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
think of this: the first time you look at multiplication, the first time you look at decimals, the first time you look at fractions, fill in the
Right.
blanks, right?
Yeah.
It's you can't go from addition to trigonometry overnight. So it's like
Right.
learning each little step along the way. And if you tell yourself you can't do the first step, you're never going to do the sixth step,
Yeah.
right? But knowing
Yeah.
that, okay, you have to go through the baby steps of the first step in order to get to the sixth step. And if you almost
Yes.
look at it like a mathematical situation, it becomes easier.
Right.
Um, Gosh, I love how your brain thinks. I do. I'm so,
Thank you.
I just get so tickled to be able to pick people's brains. Um,
Oh, thank you.
Emily, so if you click on the link below
Hmm.
this interview, it says
Yeah.
more. Under that
Yes.
link, you will find information on how to get a hold of Emily with Experience Travel.
Yeah.
I would just encourage anybody, if you thought about making the trip and you're like, oh, you know, pursue it. Pursue
Yeah.
it because
Let's do it.
we're only going to live one life, right? We're only going to live life, and don't shortchange yourself thinking I can never.
Right. Yeah.
Don't, yeah, just don't do it. And so, Emily, is there any last thing you'd like to share with our viewers?
I don't think so. This has been great. Thank you so much for having me. It's really fun to answer all these questions and think about all these things through a different lens too. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so I just want to say to all of our viewers, thank you for coming on this episode of Sagionic 1027. And until our next episode, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee always. Blessings. Bye.
Bye.